Hello, everyone, and welcome to Perfect Practice. This is Sachin Patel, and today I have a dear friend and special guest, Jodi Cohen from Vibrant Blue Oils, and she is going to be discussing how we can create the perfectly parasympathetic practice. And for all of my functional medicine colleagues and friends out there, you all understand the importance of you yourself being in a parasympathetic state so you can be of best service to your clients. And you also understand the need for your clients to be more parasympathetic. And so we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. And we're going to be talking about a very specific set of tools that Jodi has put together, such as essential oils. And we're going to talk about some of the ingredients. We're going to be talking about the application of them. And we're going to be discussing some of the powerful benefits that these oils and maybe even lifestyle changes and mindfulness changes can have on your business, on your practice, and the experience that you create for the people that you work with. So without further ado, Jodi, welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's such an honor to be here. And we're talking about my favorite subject, so it's great.
Amazing. Well, before we dive too far into this, I'd love for people to know a little bit more about your story, because I think that's a great place for us to start.
Yeah, thank you. Common to the wounded healer journey, my experience with health really started with my second child. He was much more ADD and busy than my first, and someone noticed that he was well behaved and then he ate something and he Jekyll-Hyde. So they suggested I look at nutrition. I did. It changed his whole personality. We just eliminated certain foods that he was reacting to. And it was so empowering that I decided to go back and learn how to help other moms like myself. So I studied nutrition, and I was trying to help assess, wiggly kids. So I learned this great technique called muscle testing that lets you really clearly identify remedies quickly. And that came in very handy when my next kind of healing crisis hit. My then husband was bipolar and needed to be hospitalized. And once I knew he was safe and it wasn't my job to keep him alive, my adrenals collapsed from under me. And none of the remedies that I was taking through ingestion seemed to help, because it turned out my gut was so compromised, from all of that stress, that I wasn't actually assimilating them. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that nothing was helping. And a friend, I had been volunteering to help her with some things. And as a thank you gift, she dropped off a big box of essential oils and said, I think these will help you. And I was so desperate, I thought, why not? So I muscle tested the box. 5 oils came up as being good for my adrenals, which was more than I usually got. But then it occurred to me, I can combine them. So I muscle tested how many of each drop, combined them, put them on my low back where my adrenals are most accessible, and suddenly felt like myself again. And thought, wow, that's really great. I was able to go shopping, clean the house, do the laundry, put it away, cook their favorite meal. It was kind of the most productive I'd been in a month. And that night I was lying in bed, and it occurred to me, I bet my gut's compromised, so remedies aren't getting in, but things go through the skin. Like, I knew the transdermal channel was powerful for nicotine patches and hormonal creams. I thought, wow, this might be, the avenue, the detour to get things into my system. And so I started from that vantage point, creating, something to balance, activate my vagus nerve, to stimulate my parasympathetic state that we can talk about, something to trigger the pineal gland to release melatonin. I was just looking through the lens of physiology. I knew what was out of balance. I just created my own remedy to balance it. And when I got better, my friends started asking me what I did. They wanted to try it. It seemed to help most people. And at that point, it occurred to me someone else must be doing this. So I went online and was super surprised by two things. Not only was no one really looking at oils through the lens of balancing the different organ systems and regions of the brain, but the way they explained it was so complicated that if I had had more mental capacity and started by researching, I would have felt completely underqualified. So um, I put it out kind of gradually. I had a journalism background. I liked to research, so I wrote a weekly blog. Dr. Google sent a lot of people to me. At a certain point, I hired an assistant and someone to help with fulfillment, and it just kind of kept growing. And I kept learning more and more and noticing constellations of symptoms, and kind of, it was almost like I started off thinking we were all different. Everyone needs something different. And 10 years later, we are all different. And at the root of most problems, I've kind of identified 5 imbalances that when you put that into alignment, everything else that you're doing seems to work better.
I love that. I love that. So tell us, with everything that's going on right now in the world, how are practitioners, patients, like, with your inventory of products, like what is the stuff that's moving really quickly? What are the areas that you're finding people need the most help in right now?
Anxiety, sleep, and stress. I think what people don't realize, we know that when you're in stress, your resources get allocated to keep you alive. So the blood and oxygen get routed to your arms and your legs so that you can flee the danger, and takes those resources from your ability to digest and detoxify and turn your immune system on. What we don't realize is it also switches our focus. Our pupils, the black part of your eyes, get really big. So more light gets in, so you can focus on that next best choice to keep you alive. But at the same time, it shuts down the myriad of options, because if you're stopping to contemplate your belly button, you could die. So when you think you're unsafe or in danger, you really see things as black and white. And when you make decisions in fear, that's what's happening. So the one thing that really helps most people, because there's so many things that feel outside of our control and there's so many things that feel a little frightening, the more we can switch into that parasympathetic state of our nervous system and really turn on that safety response and be able to tap into our creative problem solving skills and realize that, okay, we have a lot of options. We don't need to make this decision right now under stress. We can think about it. We can recognize where we need more information. We can feel calm and centered and grounded so that no matter what's happening in the world around us, we're still okay. We can communicate with our team members in that relaxed, respectful way. We can, when someone, says something or sends something that we find upsetting and triggering, we can maybe write that email but not send that email. And we can, go walk our dog and come back and look at it and realize, gosh, maybe I could make that a little bit kinder. Maybe I could change that. Maybe this thing doesn't even matter. It just
Mhm.
gives us that space and that perspective to really show up as our best selves.
Yeah, I feel like right now people's cups are kind of like overflowing when it comes to the stress category. So anything that we can do to have that moment of pause or reflection is valuable and certainly super important. However, we're kind of stuck in our heads, right? And where that
Yeah.
change needs to take place is in our physiology, so that that pause actually occurs, and that's how the oils can be helpful. So I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit,
Oh, please do.
because I think that it's almost the simplest tools, and not to um, overly simplify all the work that goes into this product that you make, right, and what you put out there in the world, but it can be a very elegant solution for people. But people are reluctant to try things that are so simple because they think the solutions have to be super complicated, super fancy, super expensive. So we can almost be dismissive as practitioners, and sometimes even as patients, that the solutions can be very simple and accessible and affordable to anyone. So what do you say to people who are skeptical from that perspective?
Well, skeptical. I mean, there some of the best things in the world are free. Like air is free. Nature is free. I don't know that it would be sad. We would really have a scarcity complex if we didn't think we deserved abundance and that everything had to be expensive. But also, I think that you're right. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I see. People often have seen like 17 doctors before they find me. They have a whole file folder of everything that's wrong with them, all of the tests, everything that's going on, and it's a little bit like they're data points. Like if you think of just the story of the three little pigs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't that the big bad wolf is this terrible predator, it's that your house is made of straw. Let's make your house out of bricks, and then it won't really matter that you have these pathogens in your system because your body will be able to process them and be resilient. So let's just do anything that boosts your own resilience, and it can be free things. It can be focusing on your gratitude and your forgiveness and things that bring you into that space in your heart. It's really hard to be angry or be scared when you're feeling joy and love. It could be your breathing that brings you into your body. It could just be a moment with anything you love, your animal, your family. If you have a tight relationship with an object, anything that just brings you joy. It doesn't, I think, at this time, especially when so much is limited and cut off, it's great to simplify.
Yeah, I mean, simplicity is the greatest sign of sophistication. And one of the things that I was telling my team about yesterday is that the master uses the fewest needles, right? It's the acupuncturist that just graduated that has like a million needles in the patient, whereas the master may only need one or two. And I feel like this simplicity is the missing key in healthcare right now, even if it's functional medicine or some of the other interventions that are out there. And I don't want to single anyone out, but it can get really complicated, and it can make practitioners really struggle with imposter syndrome, right? Because there's a new test coming out every month, there's new data points to study, there's new products that are coming out all the time. And I think if we can find something that is, has withstood the test of time, that produces measurable and rapid results for people, that doesn't create more of a pill burden, because I think a lot of people come into our practices now with post-traumatic supplement disorder. And
It's true.
they have a garbage bag full of stuff and they don't know why they're taking it. And it may not even be doing anything for them. And I know that, you mentioned breath, and that's a rabbit hole that I'm going down right now. And I'm actually becoming a breathwork instructor because I've realized that, hey, you can feel better in minutes if you learn how to breathe. You can feel better in days or weeks if you learn how to, hydrate better. And you can feel better in weeks or months if you learn how to eat better. So let's access the things that are readily available to us. And I feel like essential oils are a big part of the breath work that I do as well. So I'm excited to be incorporating this into some of these new ventures that I'm going down. And I've realized that simplicity is where it's at, and it allows us to help more people. It allows us to make our care and services more affordable. And it's not even about that. It actually allows us to create the change in the world that we want to see. Because even if it was free, but if it was complicated, then very few people would be able to access it.
Yeah.
So I love, I love your system. I got that little gift package from you, and I love the charts and the sheets. You've created a really simple process for anyone to be able to utilize this tool as, the essential oils as a tool in their practice, or even somebody who's a client, they can use these products in a very, very effective way. And I'll tell you what, I feel better instantly. So just before we
Yeah.
started here, this has been the busiest month of my life. And there's so many amazing opportunities and people like this that I get to connect with. But, just before I had this, before I got on this interview with you, we had all these things swirling around us. And by simply putting on the oil, it allowed me to get more centered, more focused, be more present. And, I want to thank you for, putting that together for us. So, um, my greatest form of gratitude for the work that you've done.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, and it's interesting because most people don't realize that our sense of smell actually has the best access to our brain. It
Mm-hmm.
goes directly to the amygdala when the five other senses have to go to the thalamus first. And that's because smell keeps us alive, right? We can smell food, we can smell water, we can smell danger like fire or predators. And it also goes directly into the brain because the blood-brain barrier is the thinnest around the olfactory channel.
Mm.
And there's a ton of research, like just, a quick little, if you're overwhelmed or if a client's overwhelmed, to bring them back into their body. The smell of roses, they did some research that predator odor was kind of identified as correlated with certain odor receptors, and the smell of rose cancels that out. So it's a really great way to kind of literally flip the switch out of fear and into calm.
Wow, I love that. And I think a lot of people need that right now, especially with everything that's going on.
Yeah, well, and even, I mean, being a parent during this time is challenging when you have extroverted children that are stuck at home and spending hours on the computer when they're used to being outside and exercising. It can be a lot when you're overwhelmed and then your child's overwhelmed. So figuring out the more centered you stay, and your team as well. If you're kind of the cool cucumber, everyone kind of follows your energy.
Right. So, for the practitioners that are listening who may not be using essential oils in their practice, or maybe they are, but haven't really gone down that rabbit hole, where is a good place for them to start?
Yeah, honestly, if you're thinking with a client, the easiest trick for people with anxiety, and our colleague Titus Chu taught us this, is your two hemispheres of your brain perform different functions, and often one can be overactive when the other one is underactive. And so a lot of functional neurologists use smell because that's an easy way to activate certain areas of the brain. For example, your olfactory nerve goes directly, like left nostril goes to left frontal lobe, right nostril goes to right frontal lobe. So anxiety is right frontal lobe overactivating. So just have them smell something through their left nostril. If they come to the appointment and their energy is kinetic and you want them to kind of calm down, because you mentioned supplement overwhelm, you know, when you're anxious, everything is overwhelming. So just
Mm.
smelling something through the left nostril helps them really become present. And it can be lavender, it can be orange. For practitioners, my favorite blend is the parasympathetic blend, because so often, we're telling people to change their diet, we're telling people to change their sleep habits, we're layering on supplements, but the real problem is they're stuck in that stress state. And when they're stuck in that stress state, no matter what you do, it's not going to be as effective. It's like trying to bike up a hill in high gear. It's just going to be so much harder than if you can downshift into the lower gear. So, if they don't know, your vagus nerve kind of serves as the toggle between your sympathetic fight or flight state and your parasympathetic rest and digest state. And it's really most accessible to the surface, right behind the earlobe on the mastoid bone. In fact, they do like a surgical implant of a pacemaker like device to stimulate right there. Acupuncture right there seems to be very powerful.
Mm.
So you can use a combination of stimulatory oils, which is clove, and then oils that have really small molecules like lime, so that it gets into the skin really quickly. And you can use oils to stimulate that point, and it basically activates the parasympathetic branch of your nervous system, which then lays the foundation for better digestion, better motility, better detoxification, anti-inflammation, and turning on the immune system.
Better everything, really. When we're more
Yeah.
parasympathetic, we're better human beings, I would say.
Yeah, but if you're looking for a win in your practice and you really want to help people shift into that healing state, that's a really good place to start. You can start with parasympathetic and then maybe pick 3 supplements as opposed to 23.
Okay, I love that. And then, one thing that does come up sometimes for practitioners, or some people might be thinking this, if they haven't used oils or diffused oils in their practice, how do you feel about diffusing oils? For one, that's the first question, and then secondly, people who have multiple chemical sensitivities and things like that, how do they tend to respond to oils? What's been your
Yeah.
experience?
Well, it's interesting because the one blend that I do recommend people diffuse is one called histamine balance. And, there's that idea of resonance and dissonance. Like most of my blends, I'm trying to match the resonance of healthy organ tissue. The histamine balance blend and the anti-inflammatory blend are actually dissonant ones, so they cancel out. So that tends to, it almost makes the air smell cleaner because you're canceling it out. The concern I have with diffusion is twofold. I think that it's slightly wasteful because it can be more effective to just topically apply something on the skin and then you use less. And
Mm.
the other thing is that I think you can overdose. I think that people tend to diffuse 24/7, and I think that's too much. I think, 20 minutes, maybe twice a day, is a better amount. So that's, I mean, it's not that it's wrong, it's just that there are more efficient therapeutic ways to use oils.
No, that's powerful. One thing I wanted to highlight for practitioners as well is that, when they come into our practices, I mean, there's already anxiety. Assume the world is operating perfectly, but there's already like uncertainty. It's a new experience for them. Might be a new clinic, um, or it might be a new process that they're undergoing, and we're here like rhyming, and we're just telling everything that they need to know, but then they leave and they forget.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can get them into a more parasympathetic state, they're more receptive and they're more likely to remember what we tell them. And it's going to create less questions, less emails, less customer service challenges. People can move faster on their journey if we can get them into that right state. So a couple of ways that we can do that. And I know that you would be supportive of these things because these are things that you do. Is one, asking them what they're grateful for, so it
Yes.
immediately shifts their physiology and their mind into things that they feel good about. And then we can use the essential oil. So you're saying left nostril for something like the parasympathetic blend. And
Or just even massaging behind the earlobe. You can feel that mastoid bone.
on both sides or just the left?
It doesn't matter. You can do both sides. You can do one. If you have amalgams in the mouth, the one thing that I've noticed is that oils are natural detoxifiers. So if you have an amalgam on one side, it might tend to off gas more. So I always tell people to open their drainage pathways, which is another thing oils are great for, and take binders. You know,
Okay.
ideally all of our people will get their amalgams removed, but that's a big step for people. People get very anxious about that idea.
Okay, awesome. And then the third thing I would recommend is getting, centered with the breath and using that to shift our physiology. So we've got like three really powerful tools that take less than a couple of minutes that can, create a much better user experience for our clients. It gets us to be in that state as well, so we can operate from our highest level. And it's going to create a better flow for the clients, better memory, better cognition, better awareness, and they're going to leave feeling so much better. And that anxiety that they had is going to melt away, and you're going to be able to create a unique experience for them. So I really love the capability of being able to do something like this.
Yeah, and you can even track, I mentioned that your pupils get really big and black when you're sympathetic dominant. You can look at the size of the black parts of their eyes and watch it literally shrink and know that they're there and they're with you and they're connecting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, works for marriage too. Like make sure that your spouse is in a parasympathetic state before you have that complicated conversation.
Yeah, hey, put this oil on before we talk.
Exactly, exactly.
So what are some of the other oils that you recommend? So we talked about parasympathetic.
Yeah.
You talked about sleep being a big challenge for people. So tell us more about what blends you recommend for sleep.
Yeah, so sleep gets kind of lumped together, and everyone thinks you just need to sedate with like lavender or valerian root, which is Valium, or spikenard. But what's interesting is there are different things that could be going on with sleep. There's either trouble falling asleep, which is often your stress hormone cortisol works kind of complementary and antagonistically with your sleep hormone melatonin, which makes sense because if there's danger, you don't want to fall asleep. But it's the pineal gland that releases melatonin in response to darkness. And so a lot of the artificial light throws that off. A lot of the, different cell towers, 5G throws that off because it's perceived as light. And so we have a blend called circadian rhythm that basically triggers the pineal gland to release melatonin naturally. So if you have trouble falling asleep, if insomnia is your issue, that would be a good choice. If alternately you're waking up in the middle of the night. If you wake up at 1 a.m. and you're wide awake, that's nocturnal hypoglycemia. That is your blood sugar dipped too low, and so your adrenals, to kind of keep you alive, released emergency adrenaline, blood sugar, but then you're adrenalized, you're wide awake. You could go, clean the kitchen. So the way blood sugar moves from your blood into your cells is that your pancreas releases insulin. And so anything you can do to support your pancreas can help that whole process go more smoothly and more quickly. So we have a blend for the pancreas that helps kind of release insulin and carry the blood sugar into the cells. And then finally, if you wake up between like around 3 a.m. or so, maybe you have to use the bathroom, that's often the time that your detoxification organs are working really hard, like your liver and your gallbladder. So anything you can do before bed, like you can put castor oil over your liver and gallbladder, just where they can stain. So don't wear your favorite t-shirt on top of it. But that helps to anti-inflame those organs so that more toxins can kind of flow through and out of them. We have a liver and gallbladder blend that you can apply. And that the third thing I really want to speak to is drainage. I think one of the biggest problems that I see in clinical practice is that we all know how to detoxify. There are so many great supplements that help the liver, so many great diets that you can switch to, but it's a little bit like, drinking from a fire hose. Like all of a sudden you're mobilizing all of these toxins, and they need to flow from the cell to the lymph, to the blood, to the liver, to the gallbladder, to the gut, to the toilet. If there is congestion or stagnation at any point in that process, things can back up. Think of traffic. There's an accident a mile up and you're stuck where you are. So you really need to kind of open up the flow. And that's where I think oils are amazing, because they really help move fluid and energy through the body. And so you can really use them to dilate the vasculature, so more blood gets to the brain. Good things get in, the bad things get out. It helps move lymph flow. It can really be used in that way, and it's super powerful, because that's a hard one. It's like the part of your back that's hard to scratch. It's hard to get there.
Yeah, that's a big one. Drainage pathways are often compromised in people, and I equate it to trying to flush a clogged toilet. It kind of makes the problem worse. So we got to open up, the drainage pathways so things can, be eliminated from the body.
Yeah.
What are some of the, I guess, best ways for practitioners to introduce this into their practice if they haven't been using essential oils, if their clients are new to it? What's a great way to kind of break the ice and have that conversation that you found?
It's interesting. I think just what people forget is that over 50% of our pharmaceutical drugs are derived from plants. Aspirin is white willow bark, Valium is valerian root, and so oils are just concentrated essences of plants. And basically, when digestion is compromised, it's hard to assimilate everything through the digestive channel. So what I would just say is, like, listen, this is what you already know. It's plants, it's concentrated plants, and we're just going to try a different route to get there. Think of the major freeways closed, so we're just going to take the detour, and we're going to try and hit the problem from two angles. And the more angles you hit it at, like if you're trying to lose weight, you could, you don't say like, oh, I'm either going to exercise more or I'm going to eat more vegetables. If you do both, you get there faster. So we're just kind of attacking the problem from a couple of different angles, and that will help us see more progress more quickly.
Okay, I love that. It's a great analogy, and I know there's several different companies out there, so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what makes Vibrant Blue Oils different, special, unique in their own way.
It's so funny. I really went into this blindly. I didn't quite know all the politics of the essential oil world, but I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. And when I surveyed the landscape, I realized no one was really formulating blends, which I think, when you start to look at essential oil research, it's all around blends. There's really something about the synergy, not just of combining the different plants and the attributes of the different plants, but the way they combine. If you think about the relationships in your life, there are some friendships that you're just so much funnier when you're with that person, or you're just, you're so much happier. They just bring out the best in you. I think that, we all interact with each other and can really harmonize and synchronize and show up as our best selves. So what I do differently is that I create blends. Every organ has its own frequency or blueprint. There's a blueprint of what healthy organ tissue looks like. And so I combine different plants to match. Plants and humans are biofamiliar. We have the same blueprints. So you can use different plant essences as the raw materials to match the healthy frequency of organ tissue. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm creating kind of harmonizing resonant frequencies that when you overlay them, think about when you're teaching a kid to swim, you have them wear those little water rings, right? Because it helps them kind of feel what it feels like to float in the water. You're overlaying the healthy frequency, and then your organ is like, oh, right, that's what I'm supposed to feel like. And it kind of lines up with that. A better example might be you're teaching a kid to ride a bike, and it's a combination of skills. You're moving forward, you're balancing, and some kids it's a 5-second experience. Some kids it's like a 5-month experience. It's just when their body recognizes, oh yes, this is what it feels like. So that's what you're trying to do, is kind of spot the different organ systems into balance so that they then return to healthy function.
Okay, awesome. So for practitioners that are working virtually, can you describe what that might look like, or how they might work with their clients in that type of scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my website has a ton of information, but it would be kind of a similar experience where they might just assess openness. And one of the things that we really try to do, because smell is so particular, and as a practitioner, you can drop ship to a client and they can try it. And if they don't like it, they can return it. They'll know pretty quickly if it works or if it doesn't work. I have some good friends who they love me, but they weren't quite sure about what I did. But their kids love my oil, and they're like, "Oh my God, my daughter was going to 6th grade camp and she had it in her backpack." I'm like, "Yeah, if it works, if something works, you keep it, you
Right.
integrate it very quickly."
And kids don't lie, right? They usually are
No.
brutally honest.
Yeah, and they know. I think we all know. I think, sometimes when we have cravings, like you might crave a hamburger when you need iron, or chocolate when you need magnesium, you'll be able to tell there are certain smells that you almost want to eat it. You can't get enough of it because it's helping you. And then sometimes as you heal through that and shift, it's not as appealing. You don't need it as much anymore.
Awesome. Is there an assessment tool that practitioners can use that
Yeah.
you have available for them?
Oh yeah, we have actually a whole practitioner area that you can sign up for, and then it gives you access to all of the assessment tools. We have tons of quizzes, so you can assess a variety of ways. You can kind of press on Chapman reflexes. You can look for certain symptoms, like for example, motion sickness is usually correlated with gallbladder function. You can kind of sleuth it out, or physically muscle test. We have a
My
practitioner
son
kit.
my son experiences motion sickness. So he's been better about it the last few weeks, but it's something that comes up for him. If there's anything that comes up for him, it's usually that. So would you recommend the gallbladder oil for him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And is that applied, kind of under the rib cage there?
Under the rib cage, over the gallbladder. And then I usually tell people to pair that with binders before bed, just because it does mobilize a lot, and you want to make sure that that leaves the body.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. This has been great. I could speak to you for hours. Um, but what I do know is that you've packaged a lot of this knowledge in an upcoming training and summit that you're putting together. I've seen some of the amazing experts that you've lined up to share more about how people can get parasympathetic. I think, again, the world needs this now more than ever. So thank you for doing the legwork and bringing in such amazing speakers. I'm excited to participate in it. And I'm excited to help you promote it because, again, I truly believe that if we can get people more parasympathetic, they're going to activate higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of healing. They're going to be nicer to themselves, nicer to each other. We're going to have more clear thinking. It's going to be a parasympathetic state that allows us to create the world that we all actually want to live in.
Yes.
So your work is super important, super timely. And I'd love for you to talk to us about the summit for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the summit. They're so fun because you can ask anyone anything, right? So Stephen Porges, who wrote the polyvagal theory, which is a brilliant book on the vagus nerve, but it can be a little complicated. When he's speaking, he's genius, and he really makes everything so accessible and so understandable. You did a fantastic job really diving into how things work. Kiran Krishnan, who is the creator of Megaspore, I loved his talk. He really talked about how, the gut kind of turns out, basically how the gut, sleuths out what comes into the body and tells the immune system either to react or not react, and how probiotics really work, and how when you use them in combination with activating your vagus nerve, it's really hitting the problem from both angles and you heal more quickly. Dr. Pompa and Jay Davidson and Todd Watts did a really great job talking about binders and how important those are, and how basically, I mean, it's pretty interesting. It really comes down to stress, sleep, and toxins, because toxins trigger the immune system, which triggers inflammation, which causes all these other problems. And in order to really kind of get at the root and unravel those problems, you need to be in the parasympathetic state.
I agree. I agree. So we're going to share a link so people can register. And, again, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for being the shining light that you are. And, if there's anything that you'd like to share with practitioners, the floor is yours.
The one thing I will say, we're all works in progress. And one of the things that I'm really working on is being less reactive, like really taking that parasympathetic pause. And that has helped. I've doubled my business. And I think part of it is I've learned that when I'm triggered or when something's upsetting, I don't respond in that moment. I have started to type up an email and not send it, and to either sleep on it or take a walk or go do yoga or go do something else and come back and revisit it. And I think it's really helped me distill down kind of what we were talking about to what's most important. Like, I'll give you an example. I had been doing all of our fulfillment in-house just because I'd worked with fulfillment houses before, and it's inviting a bunch of problems, but there were things that were getting to the point where we needed to go out of house. We took some of the business and sent it to this fulfillment house, and they jumped the gun. They sent about 300 orders that were duplicate. We both sent 300 orders because they weren't supposed to turn on yet. And the old me would have probably flipped her lid. And the new me decided, okay, this is upsetting, but they seem really good and like nice people. And we've been working really hard with this. And I don't want to, this is not the mountain I'm going to die on. So I just wanted to be clear, and instead of getting upset, I'm like, okay, this is upsetting. We'll figure this out later. Let's make sure everything else is going well. And I think, whatever, mistakes are going to happen, but I really do credit that parasympathetic pause. Like, I've saved the relationship. They're not bad people. No one says, oh gosh, I want to make a big mistake. But I'm grateful that I didn't overreact in the moment, because that could have caused more damage than the initial problem.
Yeah. And sometimes that happens. It's happened to me in the past where you say something and you're like, man, I wish I didn't say that. So, for all of us practitioners, I think doing whatever it takes, whether it's having that moment of gratitude, applying the oils, getting centered with your breath, going for a walk, whatever it is, the more parasympathetic we can get, the more effective we can be as leaders, the more effective we can be as healers, and the more effective we can be as parents and lovers and spouses and all those things that we want to be. And the best version of us shows up when we're in that state. So whatever tools are available to you, use them. And I would strongly, strongly endorse the oils that Jodi has. I use them for myself. I use them with my family. I'm going to go and order the gallbladder
Oh yeah,
for my son.
that's a good one.
And I think he's going to be excited about that, because he's been chewing on like ginger flakes.
That helps.
Yeah. And that it kind of works. So I'm excited to see what this can do for him. And I'm thrilled that I have a very safe, natural intervention that I can use that's going to help him feel better.
Yeah, and I have a book coming out. It's coming out March 16th with Random House, but I really try to kind of get into these 5 steps: sleep, vagus nerve, drainage, kind of calming stress and providing blood flow and energy, and then immune modulation. And it's funny because I kept trying to dumb it down. And I really agree with you. I think people need to understand what's going on because then they're more committed to how to solve it. So the first half is really getting into all of those systems. And then the second half gets into detail about what oils you can use. But if this is something that sparked interest, I think that would be, I think it's, pardon me, please, $17 on pre-sale. So it's a good way to really understand it. And especially if you like research, I was very meticulous about documenting everything.
All right. Well, I'm happy to promote that. And
Okay, thank you.
and we'll do an interview, when the book's coming out too, so we can give it more exposure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I love you. I love the work that you're doing, and I know that it means a lot to our practitioners to have tools and resources that are simple, that are accessible, affordable, and produce results. Because people, at the end of the day, us practitioners want to help people feel better, and our patients want
Yes.
to feel better. And this is a very powerful tool. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you, and it's been so great. I look forward to continuing to help you, spread this message out far and wide.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Stay parasympathetic.
I love that. You should get a T-shirt. Stay parasympathetic.
Yeah, really. That's a good idea. Would remind me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jodi. Have an amazing evening.
You too.
Lots of love.